Since this is the December lately, I thought I'd talk about Christmas, and in other words, talk about God. And I want to start off talking about God by talking about one of our cats. His name is Thor, just coincidentally. And we call him that because he's the biggest cat. As a matter of fact, he's the biggest cat either of us have ever seen. And you notice with your cats, if you have cats, that they all have their own little habits. And with Thor, we noticed every morning while we were watching TV in bed, he'd trot through the bedroom and go into the master bath right off the bedroom. And we're thinking, well, why is he doing that? And the more we started watching him, because it would be the same, it'd be like a train, it'd be 9:30 in the morning. So you could tell when 9:30 rolled around because there'd be Thor walking through. And he'd go to the deep end of our bathroom where the cabinets and the sinks are. And he'd sit there for a while. So I watched him one morning, and what he was doing was the sun would start coming in through an adjacent window and it would glow against the wall of the bathroom. And he was there watching the sun slowly arch down towards the carpet. And when it got to the cabinet door, at that point he'd be proactive. He'd get up on all fours and start pawing at the door. And then eventually the sun, as it continued in its arc, the sunlight would fall on the carpet, and he'd lay down the carpet, which he loved doing because the sun made it very warm. And I watched him do that quite a few days. And I thought, what does that remind me of? And I realized what it reminds me of is science. Because in science, you try to find a cause and effect. And Thor had found a cause and effect. He found that if he went into the bathroom at a certain time each day, and if he pawed up on the side of the cabinet, in about 10 minutes, the sun would be on the floor. Now, it's exactly like science, because in science, of course, you don't consider a conclusion to be true unless it can be duplicated. And in fact, this could be duplicated. Any other cat of ours could come into the bathroom at 9:30, could paw at the sunlight trying to pull it down on the carpet, and it would work. The sunlight would come down the carpet. You could go anywhere around the world, Africa, China, South America, Europe, and if you had the same arrangement of sun, window, cabinet, carpet, you'd be able to exactly duplicate the same sign, the same results. So it is science. It's nonsense science to us because we're not cats. We're smarter than cats. But to Thor, it is science. Mary and I love watching documentaries. We like regular movies too, but we do love documentaries. We saw one a couple years ago. It was called The Bridge. And it was about the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, where Mary and I lived for a few years. And specifically, it was about people who committed suicide by jumping off the bridge, which is very sad. Anytime someone commits suicide is sad. It's a very effective form of death because of the height. Even though you're falling however many 100 feet it is into water, The water at that point is about as hard as concrete, just from the sheer weight. And we were watching it, and they had this one guy, about 25 or so, and he had done the same thing the others had done, jumped off the bridge, but he had actually survived. He's one of the few people who have ever survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And he talked about what had happened. Evidently, he had been in a place in his life where things weren't going for him. And unfortunately, it was a situation where it was a pile of bad things, just one bad thing after another. And he reached the point where he considered taking his life. And then he reached the point where he decided he was going to take his life. So he walked out on the Golden Gate Bridge one day, went to about the middle of it, and he climbed over the rail. So he was holding onto the rail, and behind him, of course, was nothing, just air. And he held onto the rail, and he held onto it, and finally he let go. And as he let go, he started falling backwards in the air. He said that as soon as he let go of the rail, he realized he had made the biggest mistake of his life, that he really didn't want to die, but now it was too late. And he fell, he hit the water. I don't know how many feet under the water his body plunged down because of the impact. And he said he didn't consciously try to get to the surface. His body just took over. His body was fighting to save itself. And he did claw his way back up to the surface. But he had so injured himself, and he told this tale from a wheelchair, that there's no way he could stay on the surface. And then he saw something large swimming in the water towards him. And he thought, well, this is great. You know, here I want to live now, and now a shark, and there are sharks in the bay occasionally, a shark is going to eat me, a shark is going to kill me. And he noticed that there were more than one thing swimming towards him. And in fact, they started circling him, swimming around him. And as frightened as he was, he realized finally that they were seals. And what the seals were doing, they were churning the water, and the water was keeping them afloat. So that the rescue ship that he could see approaching, and he never would have lasted for the rescue ship to get there, except for those seals. And he said in the movie that anybody can say anything they want to, but he knows those seals were sent there by God. Science, of course, would say something different. Science would say that it was just an extraordinary coincidence, that there was something else going on that caused the seals to do that. But remember, this is science. This is Ralph Robert Moore. This is the Lately for December 1st, 2010. Merry Christmas.